Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Flight Lieutenant Peter Lisney, and in this episode we look at Middle East operations with 83 Expeditionary Air Group. We'll also reheat a few stories, just in case you missed them. But first, see if you can identify this noise. Find out if you're right at the end of this episode. Now, working on operations from desert air bases in the Middle East and Cyprus are the men and women of 83 Expeditionary Air Group. If you're in the RAF and haven't deployed there yet, chances are you will sometime in the future. Our correspondents are Squadron Leader Mel and Flight Lieutenant Jordan.
We defeated them militarily, but these pockets that still exist, our intent is to keep them on the run.
I'm quite lucky that my other half actually understands what it is I do and the reasons why I do it and why I love it so much.
Daesh is still a very real and current threat, not just to Iraq or the Middle East, but also wider than that.
I'm Squadron Leader Mel. I'm the Media Officer deployed to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar.
Hi there, I'm Flight Lieutenant Jordan, the Media Officer for 83 Expeditionary Air Group in the Middle East.
Today I'll be interviewing Air Commodore Stradden, the UK Air Component Commander, and Tom, James, Holly and Ewan from Al Udeid Air Base as well.
I'll be interviewing 4 members of 903 Expeditionary Air Wing at RAF Akrotiri for the Inside Air podcast.
Sir, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, Mel. Thank you.
Please can you introduce yourself and provide a little detail on your career and what role you are doing now?
Yeah, of course, Mel. But first of all, can I just say what a privilege it is to be asked to do this for Inside Air. I've been following the podcast since they came out, and it's a real great way to catch up with what's going on in our Air Force, so thank you very much. So I'm Simon Stradden. I've been in the Royal Air Force for 29 years. I joined originally as a Tornado navigator and spent quite a few years flying. I've deployed to the Middle East and had a great opportunity to travel the world. So extremes have been Chile to Alaska, Australia, India, and pretty much everywhere in between. So I've been really fortunate and I've had a great time. Since September last year, I've been the UK Air Component Commander deployed here in the Middle East in Qatar. And that role really involves 3 tasks. First of all, I am the Air Officer commanding 83 Expeditionary Air Group. So I have around about 750 people deployed in the Middle East at any given time, making sure that we continue to support our efforts to fight Daesh. I am also the UK Senior National Representative to the US and the wider coalition. So 83 nations across the global fight against Daesh, but within Al Udeid, just under 20 of those nations represented. So I am that UK Senior National Rep to that forum through there. And then the final is I have a series of delegations that allows us to conduct our activity, and therefore I authorise those sorties to go and conduct activity as per our government will.
So you spoke about one of your roles as Air Officer commanding 83 Expeditionary Air Group. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so we have 4 expeditionary air wings, so they sit underneath a group headquarters. We have one that's deployed here in Qatar with ourselves, so we are co-located, and they look after all of our life support, they look after all the logistics and enable our activity as a group headquarters, but also, more importantly, they enable the Combined Air Operations Centre and our activity there to provide command and control to all our air activity in the Middle East. 902 Expeditionary Air Wing is based down in Oman, and again, they enable activity down in the Arabian Gulf Peninsula, and are permanently based there to make sure we can either project further to the east So use it as a pad to go further to the Far East, or conduct operations or exercises from Oman. 903 Expeditionary Air Wing is our largest, and all of our flying assets are typically based in 903, which is in Cyprus. And that enables us to use the Eastern Mediterranean then to project either to the north, to the east, or indeed even down into the south, into Africa from there. So it's of strategic importance to us there. And also, being a Royal Air Force station, we have much of the home comforts as well as all the enablement that British Forces Cyprus afford us. And then the final Expeditionary Air Wing is in Minhad in the UAE, and again that allows us to work closely with our partners and continue that bilateral relationship.
Can you comment on the contribution that the approximately 700 or 800 people that are working for you are making to deliver the mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2014, when we saw the rise of Daesh and them seizing large swathes of land in Iraq and Syria, the UK, along with a broader coalition, came together to help the Iraqi government and also to combat that Daesh threat. We were primarily interested in not only making a stand against terrorism, but also to make sure the Iraqi government and the people of Iraq could regain their sovereignty and their security. And that remains our primary role for the group and the 750 odd people that we have today. And I'm really proud of the way that we go about that. And then we have a secondary role, which is really to deter malign activity in the region. And so just our mere presence hopefully makes people think twice about what they're going to get up to, and really just follow those international rules and maintain security in the region. And then the final activity is for us to be good partners and friends, either as part of that coalition or to the long-standing historical ties that we have with the region, to make sure that those bilateral relationships that we've spent many years fostering are sustained and improved into the future. For all of my nearly 30 years in the Royal Air Force, I've been coming to the Middle East, either to conduct those activities in support of Iraq or Afghanistan, and to really sort of contain that terrorism threat, to make sure that the terrorists are unable to export their violent extremist views either to the West or more globally through there. And so that's been a theme that's run through my 3 decades of operating here, for sure. And I'm really pleased to say that we're highly successful at doing that, not only with our level of integration that we have with the coalition, either that be through a NATO angle or through the global coalition that's formed to fight Daesh more recently through there, or through that bilateral work that we have nation to nation, making sure that we're able to not only have freedom of manoeuvre, freedom of the airspace, freedom of the skies, but also freedom of access to people, information, but also to make sure that our combined goals, which are typically a safe and secure and prosperous future for everybody, they're sustained into the future.
Can you talk a little bit about any recent activity where we've had successfully contributed to the counter-Daesh operation?
Yeah, so just a few months ago we were working extremely closely with the Iraqi forces on the ground north of Baghdad under what became known Operation Ready Line. So we had UK Typhoon combat aircraft, we had UK intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft, and we also had our air-to-air refuelling aircraft, all involved in what became a multinational effort to root out some of the last pockets of Daesh in the north of Iraq through there. Over a period of about 2 weeks, we took part in multiple missions and employed many weapons against these pockets of resistance that Daesh were putting up. And really pleased to see the level of coordination that we achieved with the Iraqi forces as well, not only on the ground but in the air. And so really starting to see the fruits of our labour and the investment and the training that we've undertaken over the last few years with Iraq coming to fruition, and seeing their ability and their skill sets to exercise their own security in their own country, and that was really, really pleasing. As well as some new and novel technology that we were able to employ from Typhoon. So the first operational firing of the Storm Shadow cruise missile from Typhoon against some of the more difficult targets that we were prosecuting against Daesh there. So we now have Daesh firmly on the back foot, as we have done for the last 2 years since we defeated them militarily. But these pockets that still exist, our intent is to keep them on the run, and we're doing a great job of that, not only as the UK and the Royal Air Force, but as the global coalition as well. And whilst we have numerous people that all contribute to the output of the group, we are pretty much only one person deep in most areas. And so we are heavily reliant on our skills, the quality of our people, and not only their industrious nature, but the levels of innovation that the Royal Air Force personnel exhibit when they're deployed to the Middle East.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Lorraine. I am the Chief Clerk for 903, and that covers all admin and welfare areas within Opshader.
Hi, I'm SAC Tessa. I work with Sergeant Lorraine.
Hi, I'm Corporal Sean. I'm the Air and Space Operations Specialist on TYFDET. I deal with flight plans and help assist the pilots before they go flying.
I'm Flight Lieutenant Sam, and I provide engineering support to the aircraft force elements that are deployed here.
So what is it like to deploy on operations in the Middle East in your perspective?
Depends what time of year you go, but this time round it's very hot. I'm glad that we had the isolation period to acclimatise to the heat, because it can be very hot out here when in your full uniform. So yeah, I enjoyed that. But I've been here in the winter as well. Again, it's a bit warmer than the UK, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with Sean. It's been good. We did have the isolation period here to get acclimatised, and I'm quite fair-skinned, so myself and heat don't really mix very well. My family were thinking I was going to ring home all the time and tell them how hot it is.
Oh, I love it here. I love the temperature. My accent probably tells you something different, but I just this island has so much to offer, and even being on ops, being able to get close to the coast and the water, being able to go snorkeling, outside activities, anything that involves that kind of stuff, I absolutely love it. I would come to Cyprus winter or summer, it wouldn't matter.
Finally, what about yourself, Sam? What's your opinion on the Middle East and your first experience of operations?
I think it's quite incredible. I'll echo Tess's points, because I am also fair-skinned, and factor 50 has to be applied every day. Yes. But no, it's absolutely terrific. The rain's absolutely right. Being able to actually make the most of your deployment is a rarity. So having these opportunities to get involved and actually go away as a HQ together and enjoy those aspects of it is terrific.
What are the biggest challenges you faced during your deployment, Sean?
The heat, probably one of them. I know that's quite a simple one, but maybe the longer hours as well, and maybe the one day off that we get. Well, that's certainly what it is on the Typhoon Squadron at the minute. But I think if you go into it with the right mindset, you can get yourself relaxed and into the right tempo, and you can smash anything really. Just you got to keep looking after yourself, do the right things, try and get enough sleep, and things can go well if you do the good things right.
Tessa?
I have a boyfriend back at home, and this is the first time I've been away from him, so it's been fine. We speak regularly. Usually with his job, he usually leaves me to go on tour, so this has been the other way around for us. But that has been quite challenging, especially with the length of time. Obviously, I know I'm going back, but then he's sort of looking after the house and our lives back in the UK on his own. So that has been a bit of an adjustment for both of us.
Personally, this tour's been a bit different for me. The last time I went away, my kids were 3 of them were all under the age of 5, and I went away for 6 months, which proved probably more of a challenge to my other half. my husband than it did to me. I think the guilt factor certainly set in when I was doing my job. But this time the kids are older. They're sort of, one of them is a teenager, and the twins are, you know, heading for teenage years. And plus they've had more support as well with being closer to home. So for me, I'm quite lucky that my other half actually understands what it is I do and the reasons why I do it and why I love it so much. So I think with all of that combined, it's been a lot more relaxing for me from a personal point of view. I do still miss them certainly, but they all understand what it is I'm trying to do out here.
What about yourself, Sam?
Well, one of the biggest challenges I think we face is having to go into a brand new job role that you might have no experience of previously, and then it's not just expected of you. You have to get up to speed quite quickly, despite having no experience in certain areas, because ultimately you need to deliver operational effect. So I think it's just getting up to speed with how a new station, how a new Expeditionary Air Wing and fit and function, and how you actually fit into that as well.
Hi guys, thanks for joining us today. Please can you introduce yourself and explain your role here on operations?
My name is Ewan. I'm a corporal in the Royal Air Force Police, and my role here is policing and aviation security.
I'm Corporal Holly and I'm an air ground steward out here on operations, being the accommodation manager.
Hi, my name's Tom and I'm a flight lieutenant in the RF Police. My role out here is the Theatre Provost Marshal.
I'm one of the communication officers, ensuring the networks used to enable RAF and coalition air forces are available and ready when called upon.
What is it like to deploy in operations in the Middle East?
It's interesting. It's also a challenge just because the environment out here, the heat and such like.
Culturally, working with different nationalities is always a positive. Can be a challenge sometimes.
What would you say the biggest challenges are that you've faced during your deployments?
For me, the biggest challenge has probably been at a personal level. All the previous times I've deployed, I was single. I'm now married, so adjusting to this new dynamic has been a big stress factor for both of us. And I should say my wife has been really incredibly supportive, and I am really grateful for her support immensely.
I think obviously missing family and friends and missing significant events like weddings and such like out here is obviously a bit of a challenge. But with, you know, we have Wi-Fi, we have all the same sort of communication means that we would have in the UK, so it's very easy to video call or call back to UK and keep in touch with family and friends.
And also, part of my role is to travel with JOA. However, obviously due to the COVID pandemic, we haven't been able to travel. Well, it's very limited, so hopefully that opens up and that will make things easier as we progress through the tour.
I was scared of deploying, having not done it in my time being in the Air Force. But I think having the chance to, it's opened my eyes to being away and being a mum. I'm not the first and I won't be the last to do it, so I think other mums who are going to be deploying, I think, tell them it's okay. I think there needs to be a bit, it's almost a taboo subject, I think, isn't it? And I think it is okay, and it's hard, but it's okay, and we'll get through it on the other side. But there is support out here and other mums to talk to, and yeah, that's it.
What have you enjoyed the most on your deployments?
I think working as a close member of sort of a smaller team here, working in the operational tempo and being able to see an output here and actually feel like you're contributing to something.
Highs, it's meeting people, and the support that I get from everybody is just outstanding, and the Wi-Fi out here is really good, which I think helps in the missing home part, definitely.
I think for me is to experience the rest of the RAF. I know that sounds slightly strange being in the RAF, but we're quite isolated as an RAF police trade in itself. So working alongside different branches and different departments is really, really useful and an eye-opener how the RAF does business as a whole.
Don't know. Am I allowed to say the food for Al Udeid Air Base? It's been really good. But no, okay. On a more serious note, then, there's only so much you can get from a news article, the internet, or even a podcast. But collecting these unique experiences that an operational deployment brings really makes you more aware of an individual. Now, don't be fooled. Not every experience is positive or happy, but there are some real challenges. But you can't shake that sense of adventure, and especially the shared experiences with all those who are deploying. And now, being my fourth operational deployment, mentoring and helping those whose first tour it is well is really something that I look forward to.
To what extent do you feel that you're making a positive contribution to counter-Daesh operations?
So, as part of my role, it's protecting people and assets. So, in doing that, I'm allowing everybody else to contribute towards the fight against Daesh, so they can work in a safe and secure environment.
Okay, so I know my role as accommodation manager isn't directly supporting operations as such, but I know, and I've realised throughout my career, that being an air ground steward, we are vital to making it happen. So I've made sure that people are comfy, happy in their accommodation, got working aircon. So I think knowing that the people at the top of the ladder, pilots, engineers, etc., knowing that they're comfortable means that I'm doing my job, and all that counters into the operation that we're on at the moment.
So I've recently arrived, so my personal contribution to the mission is only starting, but what I will say is that I feel honoured to deploy. The act of being here and representing the UK sends a strong and clear message. We stand together with our allies, our partners and our friends, and this act of reassurance, I said, it sends this clear message that we're not going to be intimidated by the global threat posed by Daesh, and there are no safe havens from which Daesh can operate.
Daesh is still a very real and current threat, not just to Iraq or the Middle East, but also wider than that. So to defeat them on their home soil and make it a safer place for the locals, the citizens of Iraq and others, then that's a real achievement for us.
To what extent do you feel that you are making a positive contribution to counter-Daesh operations?
I think it's very real and it's very immediate in terms of we will have the debriefs in our Commander's Action Group, and we'll actually be able to see the aircraft go off with weapons and land without. So you can see that immediate effect, and you can actually see this build up over time in terms of the effort you put into allowing the supporting aircraft to build a picture and actually support the aircraft flying in operational sorties.
I think for myself, so I'm not frontline delivery, but however with HR we look after the people who are, and if they're not worried, it sounds potentially daft, but if they're not worrying about like their pay slip and they know they've got somewhere to go to for welfare and things like that, I think they're more effective.
Yeah, again, I'm going to echo what Tess is saying. We're not frontline personnel, but if we can build that relationship with the different sections, the different squadrons, so that they know that we're there for anything that they require, including welfare, even if it's just a chat or sit down over a coffee, that the office is there for people when it comes to anything admin. I hope that and I believe that is what we're delivering here.
Yeah, so on Taif Deck, it's very much at the front of the operations there. You can see all the engineers, the ops team, the int team, everyone working hard together to deliver Typhoons flying over Iraq and Syria to do what they've got to do.
Air Commodore Stradin, I know you've been listening to the other interviews with the deployed personnel that works for 83 Expeditionary Air Group. What has been the biggest challenge for you that you've faced during your deployment, whether work-wise or personal-wise?
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult one. So, miss the family for sure. It's a long time away, and it comes on the back of quite a few of these deployments. But I think anybody that is deployed will tell you that the support network they enjoy from loved ones, families and friends back in the UK is what really enables us to go and do what we do. And so that's been fantastic. In terms of the difficulties and the challenges in the deployed space, it's making sure that our people are looked after through COVID and making sure that I can deliver as much certainty to their deployment to make sure that we always get the best out of the people that deploy, but also to afford them those opportunities to not only deliver their primary role, but to broaden their experience as well.
Are you able to talk about any highs and lows you've had during your time here?
I guess the highs are watching people do great stuff. We get people that deploy here somewhere between 4 to 6 months, and they are absolutely focused on the mission head on. And all of the distractions that happen back in the UK, those get stripped away, albeit the challenges of COVID and the rest and resilience that we'd normally enjoy. Sometimes we are the net exporters of welfare back to the UK now as families work through the various rules back there. And so to see people come to work to have a fulfilling mission and to know that they're contributing to keeping the UK safe is a real privilege.
Is there anything else you'd like to reflect on, having listened to the interviews from the other people that are deployed?
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to answer some of their questions, so I know we'll probably come on to that through there. I think for everything that the group achieves and has consistently achieved for a number of decades now, I'm really proud. I'm really proud of the way that our people approach the challenges, adapt to the environment, which is pretty harsh. I think it's 45 degrees Celsius outside now, but they just get on with it and they deliver the job, not only in style, but the way that the coalition looks at the UK because of what our people deliver is really, really impressive.
So what messages or questions do you have for the Air Component Commander?
For me, I'd say it's really difficult to differentiate between where the line is drawn for people who are supporting Shader, between Akrotiri personnel and people deployed on 903. At what point would you differentiate awarding someone a medal for serving overseas?
Yeah, that's a real tough question and a topic that gets raised quite a lot. So the operational medal that was created for Op Shader was produced a number of years ago, and the criteria set for that at the time. And so every time that an operational award is raised, the risk and rigour evaluation that goes behind that has to be assessed. And at that stage, lines have to get drawn. And so based on the risk and rigour that you see at the time. And so that's now set, even though the fight continues to evolve. But I'm really pleased to say that medallic recognition isn't the only way of recognising the great work that our people contribute to the mission out there. And so whether it be through the normal state honours and awards system, and 83 Expeditionary Air Group has had a good degree of success at that, all the way down to individual commanders rewarding their people as they can in the field. And then as we move on into the future, into what the integrated review is now telling us to do, we're going to be working potentially more and more remotely away from the front line as we're able to project our effects without physically being near the threat itself. And so I think we are about to enter a new era where it's not only those people that are operating remote, uncrewed air systems, but potentially people that are supporting the fight, either in the kind of historic air-land maritime domains or now into cyber and space. And so that's going to cause us to stop and think about how we look at medallic recognition in the future.
Could there be sort of some sections with the new ways of working, especially electronic ways of working, that potentially could be done from the UK?
Yeah, undoubtedly. So we've been involved in a degree of experimentation throughout COVID. We have reduced our footprint and our headcount where we possibly can to ease the burden on people deploying. And I'm really pleased to say that over the last 3 months, we've had an individual working back in the UK that ordinarily would be deployed to Qatar, just to see what we would need to do to enable that. way of working. We're always going to need a footprint that's forward to either integrate with our allies and our coalition partners, or to work in that kind of information space where the material is only held at the forward unit through there. And so that degree of synchronization and information sharing and collaboration will always need people forward. But there are numerous tasks now that could be exported back to the UK, or dare I say anywhere else in the globe for that matter. And so making sure that we've got the policy, that we've got missions, the technology, and then the people that are adept to working that way in the future is a journey that we've already started. And so I think we'll start to see more and more of that in the future as we become leaner and more efficient in the forward deployed space, but more reliant on reach back to the UK or, as I said, any other location around the globe for that matter.
For operational output and station output, usually it's one or the other, it's not both merging together. And I just find out where that sort of relationship could maybe be better than what it is at the moment. It does sometimes tend to complicate matters, and it shouldn't, because we're all here to do the same job, but it seems to make things a little bit more complicated, and that's what I'd maybe like something to be reviewed, is that relationship between the ops and the station.
Yeah, and again that gets highlighted quite a few times, and having been the commanding officer at 903 Expeditionary Air Wing, I lived that firsthand, where you've got an RAF station with families that are going about their normal Monday to Friday work alongside an Expeditionary Air Wing which is on live operations, flying 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that always causes a degree of friction that happens on any boundary between organisations. So I wouldn't say that it's anything new or anything that stops our activity or curtails it. It's another boundary that needs to be managed. But as we now look at what the integrated review is telling us to do in the future, I know that there are plans afoot to review the future of RAF Akrotiri and the British Forces Cyprus that support that activity. And I'm sure that we can come up with multiple options that can not only enhance our capability, but can start to rationalise the way that we do business if we're going to be working from there for the years ahead of us through there. So I think it's a really exciting prospect about how that model will evolve, and about how we can have people conducting live operations, but people also living in the same, either in the same accommodation or certainly the same street as each other. And there's plenty of opportunities there to seize new ways of working, new technologies, and bring that to bear.
What has been your biggest challenge as the ACC, Air Component Commander?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think for me, it's making sure that we always look ahead, trying to make sure that we are postured for what may be around the corner. And so whether it's COVID, whether it's hostile actors, or indeed those last pockets of Daesh that are still on the run. And so we're always trying to get one step ahead, and that is really predicated and reliant upon great intelligence and painstaking work to understand not only the context in which we operate, the environment in which we operate, but also what the enemy might do next. And so we spend a lot of time analysing, studying, and debating what might happen next to make sure that we are prepared. And we may only ever come to the 50%, 60%, 70%, or if we're lucky, the 90% solution through that. So there's always a degree of uncertainty and unpredictability. And that's where our people really come to the fore. That ability to take a plan and turn it into a lived reality, not having all of the answers at their fingertips, is where people think on their feet, and why I really enjoy these sorts of deployments so much. That ability to execute mission command, so understand my leader's intent, my intent, and then let people get on and execute the mission. And as I said before, we only ever really get to see the best of people in these operations.
I'd be really interested to know how the Air Component Commander feels the experience of COVID-19 will influence the Royal Air Force's approach to war fighting in integrated operations.
Yeah, again, another really good question and a really difficult one. I think as we watch what each nation is going through with COVID and the different approaches that each nation has taken, there are undoubtedly lessons that will come out in the fullness of time that we will need to learn and adapt. But for me personally, I think it shows just how fragile we can be and how a virus like COVID can really fix much of our activity and then force us into new ways of working. And so whilst it has challenged us, I think it's also allowed us to innovate at a pace that we wouldn't have seen without COVID through there. So for all of the difficulties and the upset and the strife that COVID's caused, I think there are some areas of goodness that we absolutely have to embrace and take forward. And I know that the Royal Air Force is at the forefront of that with our new and emerging ways of working, and I'm really excited about that.
I think my second question would probably be, what's he most hopeful to achieve by the end of his assignment? But also, what is he most concerned about?
So I'm really pleased that we continue to execute our primary mission. So regardless of all the challenges and the difficulty, our ability to diminish Daesh's ability to either pose a threat to the Iraqi people or to export terrorism is continuing to be written down, and we continue to defeat those last pockets of Daesh out there. And so that mission will continue, and we stand ready to watch how the broader Middle East evolves in a period of uncertainty and hopefully shared security and prosperity agendas across the region will mean that some of that uncertainty becomes more certain and that the Royal Air Force is able to contribute to that journey.
I would like to know what the ACC would say his biggest achievement has been since he's been in this position.
I think when I first got here, we were in a period where COVID was rife and some of our activity had been pared back to make sure that we just executed the core mission, that defeat Daesh activity out there. And that afforded us the ability to take a look at what the integrated review was pointing to and then recast 83 for the future through a project that we've named Morning Star. And so having worked for 83 or elements of 83 for the last 2 to 3 decades, I'd always thought as the group headquarters as the enemy, and now seeing it from within and seeing some of the challenges that my predecessors have had and seizing on some of those opportunities now whilst we are hopefully in a winning position in that fight against Daesh, that affords us the opportunity to evolve for the future through there. So I'm really pleased with the work that we've undertaken to rationalise our footprint in the Middle East, to make sure that we create future capacity for whatever comes next. But then some of those exciting areas of dispersed command and control that we're now exploring, some of the remote working that we're able to exploit from the UK, and therefore make sure that when our people deploy, we give them every opportunity to succeed, to make sure that they understand the mission, that the welfare provision is right for them, and that the duration that they're employed for is appropriate to the size of Royal Air Force that we currently have through there, so that we are not only able to conduct the mission and the missions of the future, but we're able to make sure that our people are fulfilled by coming on these sorts of deployments, and so they want to come back in the future and undertake this activity.
Us being here in Al-Udeid, the lead nation are the Americans, and just seeing how they honour the armed forces back there, I just wondered, have we got further to go for the general public of the UK to see our armed forces in that light?
I think, we are tremendously supported by the UK. I think our profile as a military over the last 2 or 3 decades has been at the very forefront of the British public. But we then start to look at maybe our broader national cultures. And so I would say that the UK are maybe a little bit more conservative in the way that we celebrate our armed forces. But I know that certainly speaking to my family and friends back in the UK, they're exceptionally proud of what I do and what we do.
What do you think the future of 83 Expeditionary Air Group and the role of the RAF in the Middle East looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Al, so thank you. I'm really pleased to say that just a few months ago, the UK published its integrated review, which really now sets our strategy for where we're going to go, not only with our posture in the Middle East, but more globally as well. And so 83 Expeditionary Air Group is now digesting that information, and we're at a turning point, really, where our long-standing commitment in Afghanistan is evolving. The fight against Daesh continues, but potentially at a reduced scale. And then some of the new challenges that the integrated review points to where the UK will go in the future to not only protect our people, but also to protect some of our wider objectives. And indeed, those sort of not only military capabilities, but economic and our prosperity more globally through that. And the Royal Air Force plays a pivotal role in that, and reshaping 83 Expeditionary Air Group to allow us to get after those objectives of the future. It is really the start of the journey that I've been on for the last 9 months since I deployed. And I think there's some really interesting opportunities for us to diversify where we go. COVID has challenged us for sure, but it's also shone a light in how we can do things slightly differently. Whether that's by working remotely, whether it's through dispersed activity, or whether it's through smaller groups working in a more processed, more coherent fashion than we have hitherto. So I think the future's really bright for us. But we also need to make sure that in doing that evolution that we protect the mission as well. So we will continue to get after Daesh. We will continue to deter malign activity in the region, and we still want to remain that partner of choice, either to the coalition or to those bilateral relationships that we enjoy through that. So 83 will evolve. We will introduce some fantastic new capabilities in the months and years ahead of us. We've just had F-35 from the Queen Elizabeth carrier operating in Operation Shader, our fight against Daesh, and that's gone really, really well. Hugely successful, completely integrated with the wider coalition, and a real seamless transition to a 5th-gen fighter platform through there, and all of the benefits that new technology brings us coming to bear from a deployment that was not only joint, but was a true coalition effort with the US Marine Corps, with their F-35s embarked, and then the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy operating seamlessly to execute air power in the modern age. And then we've got some great capabilities coming on through our intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance platforms, either manned through the P8 or the E7 platform, so providing an anti-surface submarine capability or global surveillance, all the way down then to the introduction of Protector, our unmanned, uncrewed platform into the future. And so where we place these new strategic assets will be key, and making sure that 83 Expeditionary Air Group is ready to receive those and then execute those fantastic new capabilities, those platforms, and the people that come with them will be able to deliver is really exciting.
Do you have anything you would like to add or any closing remarks?
I'd like to round off by saying that for all those families and friends that are back in the UK, thank you for your support. Rest assured, we are doing fantastic work here in the Middle East. We are absolutely taking the fight to Daesh. We are making sure that the Iraqi people are secure and increasingly safe, and Daesh's ability to export terrorism is nullified. And the team that are deployed here do a brilliant job of that every single day. In terms of the broader activity, I think we now have the foundations through the work that we've conducted in recasting 83 Expeditionary Air Group to not only position ourselves for the future in the short term, but in the many years ahead of us, as particularly as we get new and exciting capabilities that the Royal Air Force is procuring, and we move into the cyber and space domains. So I think the future's really, really bright, and I hope that we continue to reach for the stars.
On behalf of all our Inside Air listeners, we'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone who participated in this episode. and to all RAF personnel currently serving with 83 EAG.
This is Reheat on Inside Air. I'm LAC Victoria Andrews. 150 personnel from 16 Air Assault Brigade have been airdropped into the Jordanian desert, along with supplies by 3 Hercules C-130J aircraft. The low-altitude insertion exercise simulates a war zone and also involved the Jordanian Special Forces. RAF Deputy Commander Operations Air Marshal Jerry Mayhew has flown to Romania to visit 121 Expeditionary Air Wing, who are conducting NATO-enhanced air policing. He was joined by head of the German Air Force Lieutenant General Igno Gerhards, who expressed their strong commitment to integration.
The upcoming combined Royal Air Force and German Air Force air policing in Romania will open a new chapter for the alliance. With the integration of our Eurofighters into the Typhoon fleet, we will achieve a unique level of interoperability for NATO forces.
Alongside Major General Victor Pana, the chief of the Romanian Air Force, they observed the first ever live armed training scramble carried out by a RAF Typhoon, Luftwaffe Eurofighter and a Romanian Air Force MiG-21 Lance-Or. RAF personnel on board HMS Queen Elizabeth have enjoyed the experience of sailing through the Suez Canal. The aircraft carrier is leading a British and Allied task group on the UK's most ambitious global deployment for 2 decades, visiting the Mediterranean, the Middle East and the Indo-Pacific. And finally, Royal Air Force Rugby Union star Josh McNally has earned his first cap for England. He lined out against the US in the Autumn International Series. McNally becomes the first male RAF rugby player to play for the national side since Rory Underwood, who played for England between 1984 and 1996. McNally has been a key figure in the RAS team for the past few years. That's Reheat on Inside Air.
I'm SAC Simon Ross with this episode's Name That Noise. That was the sound of a generator, but that's not just any generator, that's a 3 mobile catering squadron generator. Initially formed in 1975 as the RAF Mobile Catering Support Unit, 3 MCS have been supporting exercises and operations for more than 40 years. The squadron regularly supports fast jet deployments and are held at readiness to respond to emergencies wherever needed. The morale-boosting chefs from 3 MCS are completely self-sufficient. Working with modular catering equipment under a tented green canvas, 3 MCS are experts in conjuring up nutritious and tasty cuisine for hungry personnel. And you might be surprised at what you can get. Curry, pie, steak, chicken, vegetarian options, fruit crumbles and so much more. When 3 MCS are looking after you, you are guaranteed a good feed.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.